Good morning, welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering the current events on this here Thursday morning, Rise and Shine. And this morning here, I'm going to look at a topic, self-governance to freedom. Self-governance to freedom. This is what we're looking at here this morning as I share with you this current events thought or meditation. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of this day. I pray that you may be with us as we study, reflect upon these things, and ponder our own self and future. May you bless us, dear Lord, by thy Spirit, we pray for Christ's sake. Amen. So I'm looking at self-governance, and self-governance is important. Self-governance is self-command, self-control, leadership of oneself, making plans and basically executing it. So this is what I want to look at here this morning for you, or with you, for your mind, your thought about your life, basically. And this applies to the individual, as you know, it would apply also to, again, a group, a state, a unit, whether it be social, political, Christian, religious, any type of things like that. Because self-governance is the way for determination. Now, often in the light of things that happen in the society, whether it be in political movement, in fighting for the rights of those who are native peoples, or those who are oppressed, or those who are less fortunate. Normally in this type of stuff, we talk about somebody fighting for somebody else's right. But if you're able to have self-governance, as I'm going to discuss it here this day, then a lot of the questions and the requests that would normally be made to somebody else for your rights or stuff like that, it is you determine and you fight for it. And as it says, you could give me liberty or you give me death. It is something that one ought to live by. And so the freedom and free self-determination could be talked about. One could desire it. But if one does not have self-governance and one is controlled by various different elements and things, then the determination will not take place. So as I say, when we look at a lot of talk about one group oppressing another group, or one group feeling marginalized, or an individual feeling marginalized, part of that marginalization comes from the individual not able to determine what tomorrow is going to be, or actually attempting. As you say, you could look at the female in a home and she's being abused one way or the other. She's at a job and she does not have the opportunity, or she does not have the mindset, I should say, to decide, give me death or give me freedom. And so because of that, until that mindset is formed and the person realizes that, I'm a human being and I need to be treated the way I want to be treated, and to be treated fairly, well, the determination to prefer to take a bullet, so to speak, or to be murdered than to live like this is not going to be there. But the moment that comes about, then a person can see themselves as a freedom fighter, insurgent. They can see themselves as, I'm going to fight for my rights. And if that comes, it comes. So freedom, self-determination is a mental thing. But this mental thing, I really think, comes from self-governance. One has to command oneself, control oneself. Else, you're going to be commanded and controlled by somebody else, and that person is going to lay down the rules. And you have to follow the rules. And if the rules are oppressive, there's not going to be much you can do about it. So then that's why this topic is so important, at least in my mind. So freedom, self-determination comes from self-governance, in my mind. Charting one's own destiny and determining one's own future require self-governance. That means I don't need somebody to guide me along. I will guide myself along. But in order for me to guide myself along, I can't be dependent. I have to be able to have my own governance in my own hand. But if I claim my own governance and I say I'm independent, then I have to provide for myself the things that an independent individual or state would do. You'll be like a child that's 6-year-old decide that they're independent and they're going to walk away from the parents' home. They run away. And then they realize, well, they're going to have to eat, they're going to have somewhere to sleep, blah, blah. And they're gonna probably quickly have to go back to their parents, or they're gonna suffer by some of this because there's some of this who say, since you can't do this, you can stay by me. But for that, I'm gonna have to abuse you. I'm gonna have to do things for you. I'm gonna set the rules. And then quickly they could realize the rules in the parents' house could be better. It could be just as bad, or the person dealing with them is dealing with them in a terrible way, but the person dealing with them is still dealing with them better than the parents. Sad to say. So some homes are terrible. So this is why self-governance is a little bit deeper. So that's why when I think about self-governance, I think about freedom to determine your future. But this has to come from knowledge, understanding, and wisdom that being exercised and applied, because a person who is ignorant, it's hard to determine their own future. It's hard for them to say where I'm going to go, how I'm going to go. They can't plan. Or if they plan, the plan is going to come apart. And you've seen this, I've seen this, where individuals will plan, and the plan, even the onset of the plan, just hearing the plan, I know it's not going to work. So I know they can't self-determine because the wisdom and knowledge and understanding is just not there. So knowledge and understanding has to always be part of all of this. You can't self-determine in ignorance. If you don't understand what you're trying to do, you can't execute it because you don't have a grasp of what you're trying to do. And also it's the same thing when it comes on to wisdom. You have to make the wise choice, which is self-determination in my mind, and self-governance. Because how do you govern if you don't understand, if you don't have the knowledge, and you don't have the ability to make choices that are sensible? You will end up in failure and then has to be rescued. And so hence, if you have to be rescued, then you have to be somebody have to put rules and regulation and stipulations on you, because now they rescue you. A good example of this would be in 2008, we had a financial crash. And after the financial crash, there were rules put in place to govern these companies that they were too big to fail, because they said, well, if you have to take our bailout money, well, we're going to put some rules on you. Now, if they had self-governed and they had put in place probably their own rules and a fallback plan and all that, so when they crashed, they could say, no, I'm fine. We don't need your assistance. We're okay. But if you can't put in place things to take care of your own self, then you can't determine your future. So current events, again, if you think about what happened last year, I think it was, or the year before, in 2017, I think it is, in Puerto Rico, they were hit with a massive hurricane. But as they were hit with a hurricane, then you realize real quickly their plan to rescue themselves was not there, even a slight percentage. It was not there, so they couldn't really determine, because they've often talked about, self-governance, either becoming a state or something. But if you cannot determine your future by making plans and knowing, hey, look, I'm in a hurricane zone, I need to prep for it. I need to have plans in place. I need to have resources in place. I need to do whatever. And the system is going haywire. Then somebody's going to come in and say, well, I'm going to determine your future and I'm going to put rules and governance on you because you can't govern yourself. Then if that's the case, then you could say, well, I don't like these rules, which is true. The rules could be unfair. But because of the lack of self-governance and whatever, then you can't have freedom. And so there's somebody's going to put a rule on you, and you might not like the rule, and you might think the rule is unfair. But the only way to not have those rules is to determine your own future. But if you can't, you're dependent, then here comes the rules. And this can be seen in so many aspects of life. And it can be seen, as I say, on a personal level, on a state level, on a country level. Many countries are in this situation. If the criminals are overrunning the society, then you can't govern yourself. If you're in your home and the people in your house, they're overrunning you, then you can't determine yourself. So somebody have to come in and kind of rescue you. And there's many situations happen where people have to call the police because they get overrun by the inhabitants in the house or by the prisoners or the criminals in the house. And many people live like that. So now they have to call for backup. So this is where I say the knowledge, understanding, and wisdom is there, because when the more you understand this, the more you see why you have this type of situation happening in society, and always will. Because as I say, if you need somebody to come in, or you can't protect yourself, you can't do what you have to do, then you're gonna have to get help from outside. You can't be independent. Now in First Corinthians chapter 6 verse 12, 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 12, as we look at self-governance to freedom, it says, all things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. So there's things that, as I say, I don't disagree with this concept of, where you have colonial masters and stuff like that. What I see, not for the right or wrong of it, but the idea is that says if you cannot take care of your own business, somebody will come in and take care of it, and the way they're going to take care of it is going to be to their advantage. And I might not like the results and the choices they make when they're governing somebody else, but I can recognize the fact that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't work together, then somebody would get and work together against you. That's just how it goes. It's in numbers we are powerful, but in division we are weak. So the devil always come to divide and to spoil. But when we work together, we have power. You see a people oppressed. How often, I remember looking back at the story of South Africa, and you realize real quickly that 10% of the population, my number is probably not 100% right, but somewhere near there, 10% of the population was controlling 90% of the population. Well, how do you do it? You figure out by making them divide amongst themselves. You create Benedict Arnold, something like that. You create people or Judases to betray amongst themselves, to spy on each other, to become their worst enemy. And if you do this, then they can't determine their future because they're divided, and they're confused. They don't know what is it they want for themselves. They can't self-govern, and so somebody have to come in and govern for them. You see a country and UN is working in there, and there's no outside entity. It's just they fighting amongst themselves. Then they need to have somebody determine their future. So somebody's not going to come in, and they're not coming as Christians. They're not coming to minister. They're coming to do you a favor, but to divide and conquer and to rape and kill and pillage and do what they have to do. Now, that might be wrong, but that's just going to be the reality. You run yourself or somebody will run you into the ground. And so here he says, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Why? Because if I'm brought under the power of anything, whatever thing is, that thing becomes my master. And I might not like the way something master me. If I'm mastering it, I can be kind. I can do it according to my personality and my character. But when something is master me, it might abuse me. And I run the risk of being abused. So it's better I govern myself than something else. So even if we're talking about, say, alcohol, if I can govern myself and I can control it, it will control me. And in this life, the sad thing about life, whether you're looking at nature, animals, or whatever, there's always this idea of dominance, and especially when you deal with human beings. Because as the Bible says, when the Lord created Adam and Eve, He gave to them, especially him, dominance or domination over nature. There's something in the human mind that we have a pre-programming to dominate. And if you're not dominant and you're not fighting back and determine your own future, somebody will dominate you. It's something in the human psyche, and it is in both male and female. Male do it, female do it. We just do it differently. We approach it from a different angle, but female will dominate you if necessary, and a male will dominate you. And just understand, this is nothing personal with people. It's just human beings will do that. You see a person, oh, look at that person that looks so nice and innocent. And you're like, watch. A person, they have that writing, they have that coded in their brain. So when we talk about become under the power of any, it is the same thing now, but substance will dominate you, whether it be any type of drugs, alcohol, it will dominate you. Love for money, dominate you. Any type of sin will dominate you. But if it's dominate you, it is controlling you, and it's letting you do, or it's making you do things that you might not do when you're sober, when you're not under the influence of whatever addiction. See a person get involved with pedophilia, pornography, getting involved with, as I say, love for money, getting involved with violent tendency, violent thoughts. It dominates. And when it dominates, now they can't govern. Something else is governed. So that's why Paul says, ending is expedient. Even killing people is expedient. If it's expedient, mean if it's in the moment. If you have to self-defend. But I will not be brought under the power of any. Having violence thought to defend oneself is something that is in the brain, I believe, natural. You see it in the in the plants. Self-defense is in everything. You see it in the flies, in the spiders, in the animal, the dogs or whatever. Self-defense. A dog will defend its owner. So you can get to that thought, and a thought to me, I need to defend my own. And after a while, that thought could switch, and it could go to offensive, violent thoughts. And Paul says, I will not be brought under any. Because if I'm brought under any, I could lose control of myself. So whether it be on a personal or a national basis, you can see the same thing. You can go from national defense to national offense, where most of your activity is focused on offensive. You become violent in your thinking and you lose control of yourself. And now your defense spending is out of control. Flip that back to the person. The person can come to a point where I need a gun. I need probably an AR-15 or a AK-47, and I need a Glock or 2 to protect my home. Skip forward 10 years, and the person has probably, this is just a conservative number, 20 guns. And you say, what happened? They went to a point from defensive to offensive, and now they start just always thinking about it. They sleep with a gun under their pillow. They sit in their house. They have a gun. They have a gun in every room. They have a gun in the garage. They have a gun and now it's a panic. A child take the gun and blow the brain out. And you say, what happened there? The person 10 years ago would never have a gun laying around, but now they just think that way. It consumes the thought. People are coming to take what I have. And then you go to their house and you're like, what are they coming to take? I just see a bunch of junk. Ain't nobody gonna take these things. If somebody take this thing, they need a whipping. And you should get rid of them too and go buy some new stuff. So it is this idea here that you got to be able to hold back yourself. This is why the gospel to me is so powerful, because the Spirit gives us this power. The Bible teaches about this power, that you got to govern yourself, because if you don't, then you run into all kind of problems and you become controlled by all kind of things that you ought not to be. In 1 John chapter 2 verse 16, 1 John chapter 2 verse 16, it says, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. So when you hear somebody start, talking a certain way, oh, that's the pride of life. And it is in all of us, because one should be proud of, the latest haircut you got. If you went to the hair salon or whatever you go to, and they cut your hair, male or female, you're like, look in the mirror and think, oh, that's so good. I'm proud of you who cut my hair, and I'm proud of myself for the way I look. So that's not natural. And these things are natural, but it comes to a point when they become consuming. You see the point? It's the same to you, the lust of the flesh, to enjoy a plate of food, to enjoy the bodily pleasure. And nothing wrong with that, but that can consume one, and it can become overpowering. I know you can't govern yourself, and then somebody's charging you for sexually assaulting them or harassing them. And you go from, hey, hi, you look good, to stalking. And you lose control yourself. You're not self-governed. If you can't govern yourself, then you can't determine your future, because somebody's going to 5 years in prison, and they're determined the next 5 years what you're going to be doing every day. They're going to set your schedule, when you eat, when you sleep, whatever you do from day to day, because you lost control of yourself. So all things are expedient, as Paul says. It's expedient to have bodily pleasure. It's expedient to enjoy a plate of food. Next thing, there's lust of the eye. It's expedient to, as I say, shouldn't say expedient, but it is natural to see something beautiful and say, that's beautiful. Oh, that looks nice. That's, aesthetically pleasing. That is natural. because that's how the eye work. As I said, the eye focus without thought. You don't have to think. If you're walking on the road and something looks nice, you don't have to think about it. Your eye will see it, and your brain will say that looks nice, and that's the end of the story. But if you make it control you and you don't exercise self-control and self-governance, your eyes will get you into trouble. I think I told the story here before, talking about the lust of the eye. So there's this road near me called Route 15. So there's a road near me called Route 15, and there's a house on the north side, but you're going up a hill, and the house is in the bush, so to speak, is away from the road. So I'll be driving, and my eye caught the house. So my eye caught the house. Multiply. I always catch the house, and I always think that's a beautiful design. My brain is always there because I always was interested in architecture and engineering. So that type of stuff, the beauty of that stuff, always caught my eye. Symmetry, design pattern, that type of thing. So anyhow, I always see the house and say, "Oh, that house so nice. I love that house. That's a nice designed house, well laid out, very symmetrical." So one day I was in an architect office. And I was in the waiting room before I talked to the architect, and I'm looking at the design, and the design struck me. And in my mind, I say, I've seen this design somewhere before. So anyhow, I finally get to sit and talk to him, and I was talking to him about a church design. And while I'm talking to him, it clicked in my mind where I've seen the design. So I said to him, there's a house on Route 15 up in the hill on the side. You designed that? And he says, yes. He said, but you're the first person to pick that out. He said, yeah, I designed the house. I was like, that's amazing. I said, I love that design. And then he told me another house that he designed. I'm like, oh, I can see the design pattern. And he was amazed and I was amazed because my eyes caught it. It's like I didn't have to, my brain just kept on seeing this house, and it's like my brain registered. That's a very well designed house. There's so many houses you can pass, and they're just houses. But that house is a well designed house. Now again, I'm interested in that. But one has to exercise the self control that one doesn't become consumed with that stuff. Because for my mind to pick that up and to register and to see just the layout in his office and see the different things that he has done and say, this design pattern seems familiar. And out of the probably thousands and hundreds, I don't know if I've seen millions of houses I'm driving around in different countries and wherever. But for me to pick out that one house and say, you seem to be the creator, so to speak. You have your imprint is upon this design. But then I could go on and I start to say, not only I love this house, but I need it. I need to own it. And it's above my budget, but I'm going to get it. One is the lust of the eye. Symmetry, pattern, design, beauty is something that we naturally are attracted to. And yet the Bible says, notice here again, I'm read it for you. In verse 16 of 1 John chapter 2, verse 16. It says, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, and the pride of life is not of the fathers of the world. So you say, but the Lord made us to love this type of stuff. How can that be not of the Father? Because all things are expedient, and not all things we need to be brought under control. It's obvious to look at an apple and think, that's a beautiful fruit. The shape, the shininess of the skin and everything like that. But we're not supposed to be controlled by these things. It's just they're there. They're there for the function and the use and the reasoning behind it. But one should not go crazy over these things. Because again, as Paul says, it might be expedient, it might be good for something, but not for controlling me. Because if I lose control of myself and something else is controlling me, now that becomes my God. That becomes my leader. And if the leadership is bad, then I'm going to be suffering under leadership that is terrible. So a group of people, or an individual need to have self-determination because they need to decide how they're going to treat themselves. If they're going to treat themselves good or not. But if you make somebody else treat you, they're going to treat you the way they want to treat you. And they might abuse you. And most of the time it ends up in abuse because the person themselves had no self-control. So what we talk about in my mind, self-governance, in my personal experience, what am I trying to accomplish? What are you trying to accomplish when you work on self-governance? Is number one, you want to be trustworthy. The Christ says simply, if you are not trustful and can't be trusted with another man's business, how can you get your own? So you want your own. If you want your own, you have to first be faithful in somebody else. As a matter of fact, it's better to be faithful in somebody else's business, because when you get your business, if you don't know what you're doing, you'll crash and burn the business. And we only have so long to live on this earth. So you normally test it out with somebody else's business. They're master of what they're doing. You work with them. You apprentice under them. You work in their business, in their shop, in their corporation, and you learn from that, and you learn to be able to be trusted, not trusted just to not steal, but trusted with responsibility. And the more you're trusted with responsibility, the more you realize, I got this. Then the moment you can say, I got this, then when you're on your own, then you're still gonna have a learning curve, because now everything is your responsibility. But you can trust yourself even, and say, I think I can govern this by myself. So trust is something that, as I said, the obvious part of trust is you can be trusted with people's things, so to speak. You can see something there, the money on the table, and don't steal it. But trust is deeper than that, because when we're talking about self-governance, we're talking about governance, leadership, having your own, doing your own thing. And when you take care of somebody else's business, and you're just doing a part of what you need to do for them, and you make sure that you secure it, you make sure it's well done, everything can be trusted. You can be trusted to run it and operate it, and then you say, okay, I can do this. Okay, so I think I can trust myself, because it's internal. It's self-governance again. Somebody else could tell you that, but you have to know in yourself, can I do this? Because somebody could say you could do this, and you end up still failing, and you knew in your heart to heart, you're not there yet. Because when the pressure comes, you're supposed to be able to say to the owner of the company or whatever, I have this. And the person should trust you, but you should know you really have this. And the moment you get it and you say, I have this, and you take care of the problem, and you sort the problem out. So you know that now if you have your own and the same problem comes up, you can say, I got this. So trust is part of self-governance. You got to be able to be trusted, and you got to be able to even trust yourself that we can do this on our own, or I can do this on my own. Because when you think about it, when it comes on to a lot of things in life, somebody have to trust you. In relationships, people have to trust you. Somebody have to trust that says, you're going to do the right thing. You're not going to betray the trust that I put in you. And then nobody have to put trackers and have to hire investigators to track your every movement, because you can be trusted. But when you can't be trusted, you can't have self-governance, because somebody have to always watch you. And then you're going to say, why are you watching me? I can take care of myself. Like, no, you can't. And this can be easily seen again in children. You don't trust a child that every time, if you're in your, say you're in your living room and the child is in the room, and the child is quiet and you're uncomfortable, that means the child has not developed the trust that they need to be developed. They can't be trusted on their own. Because the child is by themselves. You're like, I wonder what they're doing. So they can't determine. They always have to be monitored. A child always have to be monitored is a child that they don't have self-governance. You have to govern them. And if you have to govern them, that's going to be more pressure on you. And if there's more pressure on you, then you might make rules for the child. The child not going to like it, because the child going to feel like they're hemmed in and they're being repressed. And then you have to be in a repressive regime against that child. And you can't give freedom, because the child has to be on a massive regiment, because every hour of the day, every minute of the day has to be accounted for, as the child's going to get themselves in trouble. So as we get older, we develop that trust, and somebody know we can be left alone. And when we're quiet, we're not breaking stuff, we're not doing bad stuff, and then everything is good. So trust is a major part in my mind of self-governance. Health, you want good health, you want health care, you want affordable care. Well, most of what we talk about as health care, affordable care, is in the idea that people not eating their greens anymore because they don't have no parent over them. They're not going to get up and exercise because they have no governance. So they could spend 6 hours playing a video game while eating Cheetos and they're blimping out. They look like they're about to float, but they're on the ground. And you would say that person has no self-governance. Somebody else now have to take the reign. And when the doctor said, "This is what I have to do to get you back healthy," you're like, "What are you do? What is the doctor is gonna do?" And somebody say, "Oh, that's crazy. The doctor's gonna hit him with all kind of drugs. He's gonna do these crazy operations." And it just sound like wickedness what the doctor is doing. But you look at it, you're like, I'm amazed the doctor can even keep people, some people alive. And I'm amazed of the body, the abuse the body can take. But this is all stem from self-governance. People are expecting the doctor to fix something without they have no input at all. They just want to go to the doctor and the doctor work a miracle. And then when they die, the family want to sue the doctor. And I'm thinking, I don't even know why the doctor tried. That doctor is a genius for even trying, because I couldn't even figure out where to start. Now I could figure out where to start. This other thing too, there's people who have talked to me about natural health. And I say it is possible for the person to regain health, but the level of discipline and effort the person have to take on in a certain direction to regain health is going to be so monumental that a person who's going to tell me on the offset they don't like water, I'm like, man, click. Well, like, we ain't supposed to be talking. You calling me in and talking to me about you don't like water. It's no, I never do that. I'm just saying I'll listen them out and I'll be like, okay, but you understand one of the number one things to regain health is water, and so we could keep talking, but everything I'm gonna say to you is almost gonna be useless unless we talk about water. So health is you have to be able to, without your doctor input, without God striking you or something, without somebody screaming at you or scaring you. Or probably you need that. A person needs to be scared into self-governance, either by the doctor or God or something. They need to have a scare. One has to be able to, without this, then one is going to be under some very terrible regimen, taking some very noxious, poisonous medicine, doing things that could be avoided by simply exercising, changing their diet, find out what foods they shouldn't eat, cutting back on the food by having some self-control, cutting back on the volume they're eating, cutting back on the time they're seated. We can be seated, and nothing wrong with that. But we're also made to be standing and walking and running, sweating, breaking a sweat. So all of that has to do with managing of time, managing of my plate. But when you have a child again, the parents say, "Oh, no, let me fix your plate." Because all you're going to do is take candy. When I was younger and I was started changing my diet, I remember, as an example, I would go, everybody would join in line. Now I'm in my 20s now. Everybody would join in line and go for food. I'll go for where the cakes are at. That'd be it. And I'll eat the cakes first. And after I finish eating the cake, then I'll go for food. Just childish in the way I used to eat. It's so, then I have problems. But hey, it's the self-governance wasn't there. And so then I'm going to run into some problems. So somebody could say, you should have a right as a young person to determine your future. I'm like, yeah, I'm determining it all right. I'm going to be visiting the doctors in the hospital often. And because I'm kind of crazy. I'm eating for lunch, not solid food, but candy and cakes. So this idea here, as I say, can be easier seeing that you train a child, and as the child gets older, the child learn to basically schedule themselves, do the things they need to do because they're becoming an adult. But you could see an adult, when you look at their diet, you can understand why they'll never maintain or gain health, because their diet is like a 5-year-old. They could get up in the morning and have ice cream. They could drink all kind of soda. They drink soda for water, and on and on and on you go, and you realize this person here cannot determine their health future. Can't determine their future, because if you're not healthy, you just have all kind of problems. Financial stability. Financial stability is Something again is the same thing. The lust of the eye, the pride of life, the lust of the flesh. If you're controlled by this, then how do you determine your future? If you need somebody to guide you along in your financial decisions or to put some draconian measures on you, then you cannot and will never be able to determine your future to have self-governance. If a country demands or needs IMF to rescue them, the World Bank to rescue them, then the World Bank going to put measures on them and stipulations on them that they're not going to like. But part of not liking that is to say, you know what, Ben, I'm in this situation. I don't like this. I don't want to be part of this anymore. I need to figure out how I determine my financial future. How I am the head and not the tail. And so it is with a country. So it is personally. People who have no self-control in finances or can't make enough money or can't, whatever the various different reasons, have the worst credit score, gets the worst terms of loans. The worst loans are like payday loans. And then above that, they have these loans from like diverse different institutions that are just next above that. You could go to a bank and give them $1,000 or give them $500 and they give you a credit, something like that. I think they give you a credit for over a period of time or some crazy situation like that. I'm probably even getting it wrong, but it's something like that. You give them $500, they give you $500 credit. And they use that to establish your credit, something like that. And then after a while they give you credit, and then it's like they have to spoon feed you because either you're not making enough money or you don't have no self-control or both, and so they're gonna have to trust you with your own money. So they're not risking their money, they're risking your money. Something like that, I think I've seen back in the past. And then they have these other situations where you have these high interest loan that you open up the card, you have terrible interest rate, they open up a card, it's 25%, straight off the bat. And so forth and so on. So you cannot, because the stability can't be there, because your ability to make money, your income earning capacity, your work ethics, your ability to control the lust of the eye, the pride of life, is all part of the mess. And so how do you determine tomorrow? But so it is with an individual, so it is with a country that debt is spiraling out of control, a company that always can't be rated in AAA or AA or whatever. They have to be rated as junk financially. They will never have stability. And then there's going to be war in the country, people trying to overthrow the government because you deal with people who they can't be governed and they don't govern themselves. There's many people in many countries that don't seem like they don't govern themselves and they can't be governed. They're wild. And all of this can be laid to the feet of knowledge, high rate of ignorance, don't understand that they can't grasp anything too deep, and they don't make no choice or good choices, so they have no wisdom. Education is part of this also. Your ignorance and self-governance are opposite. The more ignorance is, the less you can't self-govern. Because you can't understand even these concepts I'm talking about. Can't see the value of it. So ignorance is our enemy, and ignorance is the enemy of people who are oppressed. Think about any group that is oppressed. One of the major part of oppression is to keep them ignorant. Is to not make them understand certain things. Is to destroy the educational system. You go into any ghetto or any area that is poor, and you will see the worst schools. And the curriculum is controlled by outside entity. Because if I control your curriculum, I control how you learn and your environment, then you're not going to have self-governance. This is why, like the structure of the family, the structure of the church. Think about it. Almost all the areas you go where they're like these ghettos, and the ghettos can never recover and never grow up. You have a lot of churches, but the churches are praise and worship churches. They're party church, they're ignorant church. Even if you think about Adventism, and you think about Adventism that is in the more commercial, urban areas, it is more the ignorant part of Adventism. You will not hear a discussion like that's going on. For the most part, I say for the most part because I've never heard any sensible teaching. Probably was one church I knew in the past that I would go to that was in a more urban area that they were teaching something sensible. And it was a church down in Camden. the pastor, I think Pastor Liggett was his name. It was very interesting, deep thinker that many other churches I'll go to. But that wasn't the majority of churches that were in those type of areas. So they kept the people ignorant because the pastor himself didn't have knowledge. So how do you raise a people up and people rise up to do something better when even when they go to churches, which is the church is supposed to be about the word, it's about the song. Christ never came to us as the song, he came to us as the word. If you read the New Testament, you realize they really got so much into the word that they hardly talk about worship. You don't get much talk about worship unless you're into Revelation, and even that is not really about worship, so to speak. The New Testament is just about the word, because the word became flesh and dwelt amongst us. So education become key. Christ was an educator. Christ was a teacher. Christ was a rabbi. And so this is why we into the word. But someone like, why into the word? Because that's part of the freedom. That's part of the self-governance. You get some education. You get educated from the Most High. This is why we need the true education. Morality become part of self-governance. As I say, when you look into prison, if the person is there because they're legitimately there, because they should be in prison, you would say, well, because they couldn't govern themselves, somebody have to govern them. I'm not talking about those who are there innocent. That's a small percentage. Most people are there, even if not to discuss how much time they got and how merciful the court system was to them. But just in general, if you look at what's going on, you look at somebody that can't control himself. You say, I see a child, and the child is out of control. I'm like, man, they're heading to prison. And then a few years later, like, oh, they're in prison. And somebody said, why do you say they're heading to prison? I'm like, look at them. That child can't govern himself. Child is in a teen, and you can't even talk to them for 5 seconds. They just have a bad attitude. I'm like, I know where this is going to end them. It's going to end them in prison. And so now they're going to lose control of themselves, and they're not going to be able to self-govern because somebody's have to govern them, because they can't be allowed to live a civilized, decent life. They can't be allowed amongst regular human beings. They have to be penned up in a cage. And I'm talking about people who are guilty of certain things because they're just wild animals that need to be basically like prod. You know, they call it taser. You know, bzz, bzz, you know, this is how you have to deal with them. Shoot at them and, you know, step on them and kick them and, you know, deal with them like they're some kind of dangerous wild animal. But why? A lot of that goes back to lack of education. No self-governance. Nobody teaching them how to have a schedule, how to behave decently. So morality becomes a part of self-governance. If you keep breaking rules, then probably people need to cage you up. And some people, they're so violent and crazy that they just need to be put in a pen and every now and then prod them and tase them because you can't handle them because they're so violent. They're just burst with violence without any provocation. Moral behavior, it's part of self-governance. Moral behavior. So not just morality, not lying, you know, but the deeper thought there would be moral behavior and how you behave. And that is part of self-governance. Plan, vision, execution, that's kind of taken in a different direction there, but plan, vision, execution is something I see here as part of self-governance. Because if you have a plan, well, number one, to even have a plan, you don't plan in a cage. So you have to be able to have a person on life in prison without parole. They will die in prison. They could have a plan, but they ain't no plan. The only plan they probably have is how do I break out of here? So you can't determine your future because you're not free. You could be in a situation where you're subjugated under oppression, but if you have a plan, your plan is to not only free yourself, but how do I behave when I'm a free person? So you have a plan and a vision, plan, vision, same thing. You plan a vision of how things are going to be, and you have a plan, and then you execute the plan. But all of that has to take self-governance, because if you are planning to free yourself from whatever, from ill health, from financial problem, from societal freedom, whatever your plan is, you can share it with me. I probably need the plan also. Whatever your plan is, then now you're going to have the self-governance to see the vision of what you're doing, put the plan together and execute the plan. So if you have a plan, and why you're making a plan, the plan is to do a business because you see a business is going to be a way out, or to get a career or a trade. But while you're trying to do that, you have no self-governance, and you're making food become your enemy. You're making alcohol become your enemy. And you can't succeed the way you want to succeed and put the time in the way you want to put the time in. Then what you're going to find is that you're not going to be able to execute the plan. And the plan is only in your head or on paper, but it's your plan. And if you cannot execute the plan because you're distracted with shopping, you're distracted with, the latest fashion, you're distracted with entertainment because you just like to sit and watch stuff, then you're alone going to be responsible for the failure of your plan. You're alone going to be responsible for the failure of you not getting the freedom you want to get, not to have the self-determination to determine what is your future. It is all on you because it's all your plan. Ain't nobody else's plan. But if you do all of this and you have the self-governance to be able to manage your time, manage what you eat, manage what you drink, manage your thoughts, don't get discouraged and all that, and you execute the plan, the blessing is all yours. The internal satisfaction, the award is all yours. In our society, they always have these shows that do these awards. And I'm going to tell you, the greatest award, and human beings like that lust of the flesh and pride of life. But the greatest award is to see that plan come to fruition. And even if that plan is something that you'll never get a award. So your plan is like, look, I want to become an independent, whatever, business owner. And you have that plan, you execute that plan, and you're making some money, you're doing what you have to do. Ain't nobody probably ever going to even see you and think about giving you an award. But the award is the business itself. You look at a business, you say, that's my award right there. That's my trophy. I got that thing done. And the real is not so much the business, is that, man, it happened. And you can now chart your future because you see the possibility in charting your future. But a person who could desire, how many people you've known have phenomenal talent? They got great opportunity because time and chance happen to them all. That's what the Bible says. Everybody get a chance, a crack at it. And they got a crack at it. And they're like, man, this is the wife of my dreams. And they make alcohol break the relationships up. They make drugs break the relationship up. And they say, I got my chance. The opportunity came. And I blow it. And it seemed like it never come back. And you've known people, they got a crack at it. And they make substance, they make something, killed it for them. And it never came back. They had it one time and that was it. When you think about that. And that's why that self-governance is so important. I want to share some text with you before we close, just to bolster the idea and to put forward this from the word here. Notice in John chapter 8, verse 34 through 40. Jesus answered them, verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever committeth sin is the servant of sin. And the servant abideth not in the house forever, but the Son abideth forever. If the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. So when Christ makes us free, then you become sons and you abide in the house. The servant is always going to be a hired hand. When you're a servant, you're not part of the business. If you're not part of the business, you could get fired tomorrow. If you're part of the business, they can't fire tomorrow. They can decide to probably buy you out. So then you're charting your own destiny. But when you get fired, you're just like, this is a little pittance you get and see you. And as a matter of fact, we're going to make the door knock you in the back of your head when you're leaving. And what are you going to do about that? Ain't nothing. You're just like, I signed a non-disclosure agreement. Thanks for the pittance. And you've gone out of here. So the son abide in the house forever. But the servant, nah. You don't be a servant. You won't be somebody that has to be told everything you do. You can be trusted with it. You're like a son because you know the deal. There's many people there in situation. If I ask them, if the owner of the company or whatever walked away from the company, could you take it over and run it properly? And the moment a person understands that they can't say yes to that, they can't determine their future because they depend upon somebody else to bit and bridle them. And that doesn't work. I know that ye are Abraham's seed, but ye seek to kill me, because my words had no place in you. I speak that which I have seen with my father, and ye do that which you have seen with your father, which is the devil, he was saying. They answered and said unto him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said unto him, If ye were Abraham's children, ye would do the works of Abraham. But now ye seek to kill me, a man that had told you the truth, which I have heard of God. This did not Abraham. So Christ here makes it very clear. When Abraham heard him, Abraham like, look, I listen. I do what you tell me to do. You tell me go here, I go. These group now, these cats, they were like playing a game. They were really children of the devil. And they were not going to do what Christ said. They were in rebellion. But because they were rebellion, they were saying, oh no, we're sons of Abraham. But Abraham was free. And when you think about this real quickly, Abraham was self-governing. Abraham didn't need, after, as Abraham developed, Abraham was free. Now people are doing devil worship and pagan worship and idol worship. They're not free. They're controlled by a lesser entity. Abraham answered to God, and then because of that, Abraham was free. Abraham was like a city unto himself. Abraham was independent of even Melchizedek, although he paid tithe to Melchizedek. Abraham has his own household with over 1,000 people. So Abraham lived this true experience of self-governance and freedom. But the way Abraham did it was by following the Lord, by following the dictates of the Lord. And when you follow God, what you really learn is that you now become your own governance. Someone have to tell you what to do. You'll do it. You do the right thing because it's right. And then you don't have to be locked in prison or be hunted like a wild animal. See, that was Abraham. Now, the Jews, on the other hand, that Christ were talking to, they were like, oh yeah, we're free. But we're like, you ain't free. You're controlled by the Romans. You're oppressed. You're oppressed people. And you're oppressed not because I wanted you to be oppressed. You're oppressed because you rebelled. You see oppression, you see rebellion. Someone say, why did this happen like to the African Americans or the Africans? Because they were into all kind of paganism. You say, oh, but they gave them the Bible and oppressed. Yeah, of course. You have something inferior, somebody come with something superior, they're going to control you. That's just life. Ain't no big deal about it. It's the same thing with the Jew. They had the same experience. When they were obedient to God, they were free. When they became enslaved to the devil, they become oppressed by other people. It's just the story of life, and it's going to continue to happen to all groups of people when rebellion come because they have another God. So Christ said, you ain't no free, because if you were Abraham, you would have be free if you followed Abraham. Notice in Galatians chapter 3, Galatians chapter 3, verse 21 through 27. It's just the story of life. If you really want to be free, you find Jesus. You follow the whole Bible from Genesis to Revelation. And the more you apply the principles there as the Holy Spirit lead you, you'll find your freedom come on. You start break loose from all kind of shiny, glistening gold and silver and diamond. You start break loose from drugs and alcohol. You start break loose from fashion. You start, oh man, I'm coming out of the cave. But you watch others that are going towards darkness and the devil, saying that they have evolution as their theory, but it's the devil's principle. They start serving more the devil and they start becoming dark and they start becoming enslaved. It is just the reality of life. Galatians 3 verse 21 says, is the law against the promises of God? God forbid. For if there had been a law given which could have given life, verily righteousness should have been by the law. But the scripture had conclude all under sin. That's the sad reality, but as is so, that the promises promised by faith of Jesus Christ might be given to them that believe. But before faith came, we were kept under a law, shut up unto the faith which should afterward be revealed. Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we might be justified by faith. So a person say, oh, I just want to have faith. You're a joker. They don't know what they're talking about. Listen, you need the law first before you can come to the real realization of what Christ is. Because a person who have no self-governance is a lawbreaker. Hence, they're not free. But when you understand what the law is, you see, the law is like a child in school. Because let's take a time. I'm going to say this to you and I'll finish reading. The law is like a schoolmaster. But as you get older, you become self-reliant. As you get older, you start to learn to do. You don't have somebody have to whip you to do your homework. Nobody have to punish you to behave yourself in class, because the self-governance comes on. And so then you can become your own learner. By the time you get to the PhD level, so to speak, the master's level, that level, the graduate school, you're supposed to be able to go out there and do your own research, and then you're graded on your ability to research and come up with the right answers, more or less. Professor is there to guide you along, but you're supposed to be a research student at this point. Ain't nobody supposed to be over you, whipping you to do your work. But until that time, you need a schoolmaster. And that's what the law is. But it doesn't mean that a schoolmaster is a bad thing. It just means that simply because you're immature. And as you got the maturity, you can get the freedom to understand, oh, no, you see, I don't need to whip you to do your schoolwork. I don't need to whip you to behave yourself in class. You know to behave yourself in class. And that's when the true religion comes on. But if you're telling me about faith and, righteousness and all, and you out of control, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't even know what you're talking about. You don't know the first thing what you're talking about. And talking about, oh, no, law and stuff like that. If some people don't have a gun next to the, that police with a gun, they're not behaving themselves. So notice, wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we might be justified by faith. But after the faith is come, we are no longer under schoolmaster. After you come, if you're doing master's degree, you're not supposed to be behaving like you need a schoolmaster to be over you. For ye are all children of God by faith in Jesus Christ. For as many as of you as have been baptized into Christ have put on Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for ye are all under Christ Jesus. And if ye be Christ, then you're Abraham's seed, the heirs according to the promise. So somebody say, okay, so you're saying husband is not the head of the household. Technically, no. If you need somebody to always be over you and tell you what to do because you just keep coming up with dumb ideas and keep doing dumb stuff, then probably you need a head of your household, somebody over you to always be governing you. And you can't self-govern. You can't be trusted because you just crazy stuff. But notice it said male nor female, Jew or Greek, we all good. But somebody says, so we don't need people to rule over. Oh yes, because most people are not. They're still under the law. They're not under grace. They can't be trusted. They need some spy agency and some police and stuff that constantly investigate them and constantly knock them over the head. And that's what the Bible is saying here. That's how I understand it. So if you think about the story of Joseph as a good example, Joseph became the second in charge of Egypt because he was able, without any schoolmaster, he had matured enough that he didn't need somebody to be over him. So he experienced this experience of schoolmaster or the law and then grace or faith. He didn't need that. But his brothers needed somebody to be watching over them because they were dangerous and yet they were older than him. So hence they needed a schoolmaster. They need somebody to be whipping them. That's simply what the Bible teaches. So self-governance leads to freedom. So he got the freedom through bondage, but he got the freedom, the irony of the story, because he had self-governance. He can be trusted. He can given the authority to rule because he had the self-governance. If you think about the ant, as the Bible says, go to now the ant. In Proverbs 6 verse 6, it's the same story. The ant, it says, neither have ruler over them or guide or overseer, but they take care of the food in the summer for the winter. But if you're not doing that, then you need somebody to be over you. If you're not like the ant who's going to prepare and don't need somebody to guide you, then you can't be independent. That's what the Bible is saying here. And when you understand this, you get it very clearly. And I'll read in closing, sake of time. It said, know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize. So run that you may obtain it. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate. They have self-control, self-governance in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible crown. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air. We know what we're doing. We know what God put us here to do. But I keep under my body and I bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself become a castaway. So Self-governance leads to freedom. If I can't govern myself, if the state can't govern themselves, I mean the people group, then somebody else is going to take away your freedom because you can't be allowed to behave yourself on your own. That's simple what it is. And so we truly need to receive that law, and then we go from that to faith, and then you're free to do what you want to do because you're going to do the right thing, like Joseph or Daniel. Let's pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I pray, dear Lord, for temperance to be upon us, dear Lord, that we might truly have the self-control that we need. May you bless us, dear Lord, that we might honor thee in all that we do and say. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for being with me here on Revive Form Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow morning where we should talk about wisdom for living. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.